Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm your host JJ and that is not Sergey. So today with me I have sparrowhawk1.
Yep, glad to be here again. I think it's been a few months, but happy to be back.
Yeah. I mean, it should have been roughly 4 months, right? Because last time we talked about the rewards track for Hearthstone as it was just announced. Well, after they had done the first revision. And today, we're going to be talking about the new Hearthstone expansion, Forged in the Barrens, and I suppose also the core set a little bit, because that kind of goes hand in hand. And yeah, it's going to be about 4 months, so I guess I'll start off with, what do you think about the new set and the change with the core set? It's a very broad question.
I mean, it's the same with every expansion. I enjoy seeing new cards, but especially with the core set rotating, I think the meta is going to change quite a bit. So, like some of the decks that we're used to seeing, Highlander decks, even like Token Druid, I think is Savage rotating, or like it's like different like important cards that just aren't going to be around anymore. I've got to search this and just find out which cards are actually going.
Yeah, I would recommend to go to playhearthstone.com/en-us/cards. And then if you go !set equals core, you get there is no Savage Roar.
I'm just imagining not playing around Savage Roar for years now.
There is Force of Nature, Soul of the Forest, there is Power of the Wild still, so most of the token staples are there, but no Savage Roar. What
is it?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the pocket meta that we've got right now with the nerfs, but it's showing what we had, and now it's going to be a massive contrast just in a couple of days. It's crazy to think that.
Yeah, what I noticed, speaking of attack buffs, right? I noticed that whenever they were revealing more and more Murloc things for Shaman, I was like, oh, Murloc Shaman looks really good right around now. And then I looked at the core set and I'm like, there is no Grimscale Oracle. There is no War Leader. There is no Cold Light Seer. Wait, is it Cold Light Seer? The one that buffs health. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's Cold Light Seer. So I'm like all the neutral classic Murloc cards that were like really core in Murloc decks just aren't there. Like Murloc decks.
Actually, no, there is Cold Light Seer still. Cold Light Seer will be a thing.
Cold Light Seer was there? Oh, sorry, I thought it wasn't,
yeah.
but still, I mean, War Leader is the big one, nonetheless, but...
That's one of the decks I've theory crafted is Murloc Shaman, because I think they've got a few interesting new tools that's coming in. Even the Caravan, which people have been sleeping on, I think.
Yeah, Seer is there, right. So the neutral... Well, all of the core set Murlocs are Murloc Tinyfin, Murloc Tidecaller, Murloc Tidehunter, Redgill Razorjaw, which is a new one that is what they originally changed Bluegill to, but now they've given it a different card because people wanted to have the charged Bluegill in Wild, and a Cold Light Seer, but no attack buffs. No passive attack buffs. So the best thing you have basically is Felfin Navigator right now, which feels very different than War Leader.
But again, because all the cards are rotating, it's hard to gauge how powerful it'll actually be. Because it might not look so powerful from this perspective, because we've been spoiled with all this Highlander, Zephyrus, and even Edwin. Just like a card that's been around forever.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think the decks are going to be overall weaker. So they would not... the new decks will not be good in the current meta... Well, in the pre-expansion meta, but they will probably be very valid in the post-expansion meta. And it seems that they're going less aggressive a little bit with, as we said, no Savage Roar, no War Leaders. Like, they're going for maybe slightly slower games, maybe, but I don't know. It's just an impression I'm getting from this.
And especially with the classic mode being released, you start to appreciate board-based games more, and I feel like it'll be less swingy and to be more decisions as to how you're going to trade and so on, which I feel like we've not had.
I just checked to make sure, but yeah, there's also no bloodlust. So, like, a lot of the big attack buffs just aren't there. Which, it's so weird, right? I have played Hearthstone from before Nax came out, right? So I've been playing it from the classic times. And it's so weird that there's been cards that just have always been there, that are just not going to be there anymore. This feels, from a side standpoint, this feels kind of like when Standard was introduced. So when all of a sudden, I think it was when Whispers of the Old Gods came out, and all of a sudden you couldn't use GVG cards anymore, right? It's like, or Naxxramas cards. It's like, it's weird that no one can play Baron Riven there anymore in this, like, primary format. And now it's like, no one will be able to play Bloodlust anymore. That's weird.
It is weird. We've not actually seen Bloodlust as part of a deck, except for being discovered off Zephyrus for quite a while, but it's, the fact that you won't have to play around it is just insane, just because classic and basic cards have just been a mainstay for so long.
Mm-hmm. You kind of mentioned the classic mode. What are your thoughts on that?
I've actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Unlike you, I didn't start playing Hearthstone during classic. I started I think just before Whispers of the Old Gods. So the furthest back I can remember is League of Explorers. So being able to play with the unnerfed cards that people at the start used to play with for I think months before Nax even came out, is quite fun. And obviously with the ladder, the star bonus is only ×2 for everyone, I think. So it's quite a grind, but it's I'm enjoying it. I've been playing a lot of Druid and Miracle Rogue, and I've not really touched Hunter, but I quite liked Freeze Mage because I didn't get the chance to play that even when it came out because it was a pretty expensive deck. But now, after a while of having these cards in my classic collection, it's finally paying off.
Yeah, I honestly, when I saw the mode first, I was like, whatever. I basically said, like, yeah, I remember when this was a thing. I don't see why we have to go back to it. But yeah, I guess for people that never got to experience it, this is probably going to be a very exciting thing. I don't know if I ever played in that exact classic meta, because there have been constant nerfs and changes. And so I might have started a little bit later than that exact patch. But yeah, it is definitely interesting to see. I'm probably going to stick to Standard and Wild. I noticed the casual is always Wild now. I don't think anyone has ever really mentioned it.
I saw on a stream someone mentioned it, and I think obviously Zeddy said some people have mentioned it to him. But I don't think it's too big a change. Obviously, some people like playing casual because there's less pressure from winning and so on. But I feel that casual modes, I never played standard casual anyway, and because you can't complete achievements in them now, I don't see why it's. I'd happily take the new classic mode instead of having standard casual, but I can understand why some people might think differently.
Yeah, I mean, I can see. I probably can see why they removed it, because they don't want to have too many different queues, because A, that means less players per queue, and B, that leads to just also confusion for new players, because, you know, that's the whole joke always, but like, Blizzard doesn't want to confuse new players, but if you go to play modes and all of a sudden there's like 10 different play modes, well, it would be 5, but the more play modes there are, the more confusing it gets, so I can see why they don't do it. I can't remember the last time I used it, because in theory I would say deck brewing, right? But if I want to test out a deck and I don't want to fuck up my standard rank for the once in a blue moon when it's actually good, I just play Wild. Like, it doesn't compare against Wild decks, but I can still see what the deck feels like if the curve is okay, and if it does what it's supposed to do. And then if I'm somewhat happy with it, then I just play it on ranked anyways, because testing a casual is not representative of the latter.
Yeah, because people in casual just did it to complete quests, but now I think that a lot of the quests don't even complete in casual, right?
I'm not sure about that, actually. I mean, I'm going to trust you when you say that. I just haven't tried.
Exactly. I feel like the people who play on casual are a smaller player base than other game modes. And like you said, having all the options on the screen I think there's now 4 options. It's standard, wild, classic, and casual. And I think any more than that would just clutter up the interface. So I can understand why they did that.
Yeah, especially since I would not be surprised if at some point down the line there was another one. They come up with something else, maybe a rotating wild format like people have been asking for on top of the regular wild ladder or something. And, like the arena rotation, but as a constructed game mode. And if that happens, then you already have 5 queues, and then if you just had every format have a ranked, unranked distinction, you would then all of a sudden not have... even right now, if you had kept the regular casual ranked distinction for every mode, you would also have a classic casual. So you would have 6 modes rather than 4, so that's already quite a difference. And as you said...
That's true. I didn't think of that.
There's probably not a lot of people playing casual, so it's probably going to take a while to queue casual. And if you just have 1 casual queue rather than 3, or at the very least 2 that are relatively relevant, you're going to have twice as many players in there, in theory.
Yeah, they've had that problem with Wild, in that people who are quite high legend in Wild have had to wait like minutes and minutes just to find someone to play against. So like queue times are definitely a factor when they're considering this.
Yeah, and that's also one of those things where things like growing and shrinking player bases are going to be... I'm going a bit off topic here, but are going to be relatively relevant. So if they keep doing things that anger their old player base while not bringing in a lot of new players, queue times are going to get worse, which is going to anger the player base, which is just going to drive away more players, and that's the kind of thing that kills a game like this, because in theory, it wouldn't matter if there's like a couple hundred maybe not, but a couple thousand players less, but if you're trying to queue at a time where there's not a lot of players, that could be noticeable. We talked about Core Set, we talked about Classic, we talked about... I think we kind of touched on Core Set, but what are your overall impressions of the idea to change the Core Set, and B, the actual cards that end up being in there?
I've always been a fan of Kibler's idea that they have a rotating core set where they can choose which cards they want to keep in standard. So I totally support them on this decision. There's just too many cards that they've had to play around with. For even like a simple one like Sorcerer's Apprentice, it's a card that's been around for like since the start, and they've had to worry about how can we balance Mage so that they just can't make this amazing combo even with Archmage Antonidas. They can't have 2 powerful 1-cost spells, or it's like Cyclone Mage is pretty powerful, but it could be a lot worse if they hadn't balanced it properly.
Yeah. Actually, it kind of reminds me of this very fringe thing that people will try to do, where if you had Unstable Evolution back in the day, you would try to evolve as many 1-drops as you could possibly to get Radiant Elemental or Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then just get free Unstable Evolutions indefinitely before they made the change to Echo cards not being able to cost less than 1 anymore.
I've seen so many highlights of that I think I've got like a false memory of myself doing that in my mind. I can't.
I definitely remember...
I'm sure I pulled it off before in Tavern Brawl, at least.
I definitely remember playing Unstable Evolution a lot and trying to hit every 1-drop first before I evolve everything else, and also specifically remember never actually pulling it off, which is very disappointing. But yeah, we don't necessarily need those sort of things in the game. Though, in that case, it's not meta upsetting or anything, but it still feels bad whenever your opponent pulls it off and you're like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah. It's a balance between making things fun for the player base and also making them balanced, and I think a core set is the perfect solution for that. They can choose which cards they want to keep in, which means they can release more powerful cards that don't break the meta.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't age well. Hopefully badly.
Because Magic has of course been infamously doing this for basically ever. I think they actually retired the core set for a while and brought them back recently, but yeah. So, what about the specific cards that, you've probably looked over the list before you said you've been theory crafting some decks. Is there anything that particularly either excited you that they included, or that you thought was really annoying that they cut?
You mean in the core set or in the
core
Force
set,
and the Barrens? In the core set. I'll just bring that up. I like that they've removed a bunch of the charge minions. I think that that's healthy for the state of the game. I agree with that decision for sure. I like that they've brought some cards back that were in previous sets, like Quick Shot and Bear Shark. Cards which like you played for a bit, but they like I don't think they're even in wild decks right now. So they by bringing them back to the core set, I think they're actually going to see some play, and I'll enjoy making some sort of aggro hunter deck. I probably won't play it too much because I'm not a massive hunter player right now, just because the main deck is Highlander Hunter, right? Although Face Hunter did come back for a short
Face Hunter and Highlander
period.
Hunter, I think, were both pretty relevant.
It's just the idea of having new cards to play around with to kind of rejuvenate the decks is quite exciting for me.
Yeah, as you mentioned Hunter, I think that's a good point. I really like some of the cards that they brought back in combination of what they chose to keep, right? So keeping something like High Main, while also bringing back Web Spinner and Bear Shark, just makes me think that Midrange Hunter is going to make a comeback. This feels like the core inventory of what a Midrange Hunter... I mean, Web Spinner not as much, but I just really like it. Historically. I've always liked the kind of beast-themed Hunter decks, and I used to, before I really knew how to make a good deck, or before I ever had the idea to net deck, I would just throw together decks that seemed to make sense, and I would just put a bunch of beasts and beast energy in a Hunter deck, and basically create a very crude version of Midrange Hunter that always worked reasonably well for me, and so I have very fond memories of a lot of these cards. And
I feel like a lot of people, Midrange Hunter was their first deck just because it was so cheap. And cards like Dire Frenzy, I think that's going to be a big card in the upcoming meta.
Oh, right.
It was strong even when it was in the meta before, and with the rotating stuff, I think it will be good.
Well, at least
I saw Dexter play with it a bit, and it looked quite strong.
Yeah, at least this time we don't have boars, so
for sure.
Gonna make more sense in as far as people don't just use it to try to go as much face as possible, but they're actually gonna use it hopefully a bit better. I was kind of expecting a bit more from the core set at first in terms of power level. But I understand why they want to make expansion cards played, because A, they're going to be there for less time, and B, they kind of want to sell card packs. I mean, for them it's probably the other way around in priority, but overall, I didn't know fully what to expect, but this was somewhere in between what I pessimistically expected versus what I was hoping for. So I feel like it turned out pretty well. Kind of trimmed a lot of the fat from the core set because no one needs there to be this random minion that has slightly less than vanilla stats and one keyword that's not very helpful and no relevant tribes, and then no one needs Core Hound or something. I don't think Core Hound is in here, right? It's so don't tell me Core Hound.
And they buffed a bunch of cards that just weren't seeing play, and they brought back they reprinted some of the classic legendary cards, like the big dragons. Yeah, Nors Dormu. I think that's a big one because now you've got blitz modes in Hearthstone.
Yeah, I don't think. I actually know Dormu could be somewhat better relevant even because it's a 7-mana 8/8 dragon. If there is a deck that wants big dragons, 7-mana 8/8 is not a horrible stat line. So maybe it's going to see some amount of play. I don't know. But yeah, I definitely like some of the changes. Deathwing feels a lot more playable with not needing to discard your entire hand for it to work. Ysera is probably slightly higher value in total. Well, actually, it is almost certainly higher value than total because
for definite, sure, yeah.
I think the only situation that you're not going to get as much with Ysera is that you get multiple nightmares and you then use that to kill your opponent or something, which is arguably also good. It's more consistent.
Yeah, they've removed the burst you can get from Ysera and made it more looking at the... Yeah, Ysera awakens only to minions. Nightmare's still there, but they've nerfed it. And
I
they've
didn't look at the
buffed
cards.
the Laughing Sister to make it 2 mana instead of 3.
Oh, I had somehow never looked at the cards. I just assumed they were the same as before. But I was mostly thinking the fact that you used to just be able to get Nightmare turn 1, Isera lives for a turn, Nightmare turn 2, and all of a sudden one of your minions just packs a huge punch and no one would see coming. And so in this case, this is definitely a good change. Other ones, not as much. I find Alexstrasza interesting. I don't know if I like it better or less, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it gives options to clear boards as well. It's more flexible, but you can't. I'm thinking of playing it against random solo adventure bosses where you'd turn their health from 100 to 15 in one turn. Although I guess you can still play the old Alexstrasza as well.
Yeah.
In those games.
But overall, I like the changes. Malygos is one of those cards where the change is a bit more dramatic, but it was arguably necessary for them to be able to design certain spells, because if they designed something like they used Greater Arcane Missiles used to use a spell damage shot to increase the amount of missiles, but the strength of the individual missile, and if you design like a regular Arcane Missiles like this, for example, you could just not do that with Malygos. I mean, even the regular one with 8 missiles is already crazy, but if you had 3 6-damage missiles, that's 18 damage. You just can't do something like that. I mean, that's a hypothetical example, but the design space for spells is just a lot more flexible.
Yeah, I mean, Malygos is a card they've been playing around with years. Like, how do you balance this card? Because there's all these different combos you can have in the game. Even things like Geppetto Joybuzz, at least it costs 8 mana, so it's a massive tempo loss to activate the combo.
Yeah.
But with the new Malygos, it's going to be much more difficult to pull off those big OTKs. And I think OTK decks are going to, I say hopefully make a decline, but obviously Lifesteal Demon Hunter is still going to be a thing.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that one as much. I feel like it's it takes enough setup to the point where it's not impressive or anything. But yeah, you mentioned the buffs to some cards, which I find really interesting. And for a while there, the Hearthstone team was like, we are not going to buff cards, it's not worth it, it doesn't make a difference, blah, blah, blah. And now, with the course, they were just like, you know what? Buff some cards. Karen Bloodhoof, 5/5. Bane, that he summons as a death rattle, also 5/5. That's a nice little change. Maybe it helps. Korobashi Berserker, I think used to have 7 health, he now has 8. Probably not going to make him play very... Actually, oh no, he gets +3 attack, that's a big change. He has to only give +2.
+2, yeah. And big one is like High Inquisitor Whitemane, which I think used to be an 8 mana card, is now a 6 mana card.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, no one ever played that when they released it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Defender of Argus.
You only ever saw it from Zephyrus, I think.
Yeah, Defender of Argus, speaking of Zephyrus cards, would sometimes come off of Zephyrus, now it's 1 extra attack. Is it going to really push it ahead in the game? Probably not. But is it now going to be more of a fringe inclusion? Probably. So, overall, slightly lowering the power level from last year, while also increasing the power level slightly from some of the lesser played cards in the core set, is actually going to make this, I think, a very exciting meta to play in. I haven't looked too much at the...
Yeah.
I should mention. I should have mentioned this at the start, but I forgot. We're recording this before the expansion launches. We have not yet played in the Barrens meta. I should have said that at the beginning. That was... Yeah.
Yeah, we have no idea what you're playing right now. You could be playing this crazy, powerful deck that we've not even considered yet, and everyone's complaining about it. But hopefully, what we're predicting is a more healthy meta with cards which we've not seen for a while and making a comeback. And hopefully it'll be good for the game. It looks like it will be.
Yeah. And unless you have anything else to say about the new expansion cycle, I guess that brings us to the facts of the week.
No, I think we've touched on a lot of things. Obviously, we could look at more cards, but then it would go on for ages going through all the different combos you could do in the new set. So we can go on to that.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of combos you can do once the set actually comes out and it gets played. So what is your fact of the week? My
fact of the week is you know how the planets are arranged. It goes like Mercury, Venus, Earth, and you think of them in like a line. Like Mercury is closer to Venus, Venus closer to Earth. Oops, sorry. Kettle boiling.
Oh.
But for the average on average, the closest planet to Venus is Mercury, which you might consider, but also the closest on average planet to Earth is Mercury as well, because when Venus is on the other side of the sun, Mercury is still closer to Earth because they're opposite sides, and that actually works for all the planets. So on average, the closest planet to any planet is Mercury, just because it's all it is distance to the sun plus a little bit.
Yeah,
it makes sense when you think about it. But I find it quite interesting, just because of the models you've seen of planets are just them in a line, and you think of like Neptune over here and Mercury being really far away, but really it doesn't change that much just because Mercury goes on either side of the sun.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. I hadn't thought about that really. But yeah, obviously, right? Because the planets are always going to be at different points in their orbit. They rarely align. I mean, people often talk about when like two planets align. Like all of them aligning basically never happens. So the distance is always going to be effectively that to the sun when you compare to Mercury. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. My fact of the week is in a very different field of science. Well, I guess they documented it, so technically science. And that is that Microsoft in 2019 tested in Japan a 4-day work week. So they would just give their employees Fridays off. They would just work Monday through Thursday. And so the headline will say that they tried to 4-day work week, and that increased productivity by 40%, which sounds very drastic. It's not just that, but it's still very impressive. So they also reduced meetings and said that they should focus a little bit less on emails. So, but they took a couple of simple measures that ended up making the work life easier for their employees while also increasing productivity. And I think that's kind of information that is worth sharing, because having someone work more hours doesn't necessarily result in more work being done. I think that's very important for people to know.
Yeah. An interesting question that arises from that is, does that mean that they would get paid more or less? Is it still would it be more of an hourly thing, or is it still like a set salary? And like, is that worth implementing like across the board? I suppose there's like some jobs which you'd need to have more days a week for each person, just because there's more demand. Yeah, I mean, so is this the right field for a 4-day week? I mean, it depends, right? You can't just give everyone who works at McDonald's a 4-day work week, because service staff is needed around the clock, right? Well, whenever the store is open, there's staff needed, right? You can't really make that more effective. But in something like an office job, you can oftentimes cut down the time that is actually being worked in favor of getting more productivity out of them when they are working. There's been other experiments done with reducing the hours in a day, which also generally leads to average productivity being up, and you can find a sweet spot where the total productivity is still highest. And it depends on the field. I think a big factor in that is that for people when they're working, it's really hard to work 7 days in a row at a constant productivity, because like I think like our bodies almost kind of work in that sort of cycle of 7 days. Although I remember reading about this, like some police people, what they do is they work for like I think 10 days in a row, and then like take like a week off or so on, and I guess it would work in that way too. There's so many different configurations that you could imagine for how people could work. Yeah, I think generally the longer in one chunk you work, whether it's hours in a day or days in a week, the lower your productivity gets over time, because you need a recharge period. So, for example,
it might be more effective if you worked 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the evening than if you worked 8 hours from like morning to afternoon, even though it's the same amount of hours worked. Now, it's hard to convince people of something like that because you don't want to go to work twice, especially if you have a commute. But for certain other ideas, like, for example, having maybe working 4 days, but not necessarily Monday through Thursday, but rather Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday, for example, and you have kind of like a mini weekend on Wednesday, could, for example, work. But I think a lot of that just comes down to trial and error. I think we can philosophize
or you can have it so that it was like 4 days in a row, then 2 days off, 4 days in a row, then 2 days off. So it's like a 6-day week, but you keep on shifting it, and you forget about the Monday to Sunday. You just name them the dates in the calendar.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how well that would work.
The problem is with a schedule like that, you would need the entire world to work on that, because otherwise you get very confusing when you try to go to the store on your day off, and all of a sudden it's Sunday. It might be not an international problem now that I think about it. I think it's a very German thing, stores being closed on Sundays. But the point is, not the entire world operates the same every day. So the weekday is important, and if you work on a 6-hour week, on a 6-day week, then you kind of have to be aware of where the world is as well, and that can get confusing. But something, for example, like a 14-day week schedule works really well, because you're always aware of the weekday, but you're like, this is the even Sunday and this is the odd Sunday, right? And it's just even calendar weeks, odd calendar weeks, and then it's just that. I used to actually, the school I used to go to actually did that for like most of the time I was there, I think, at the end of the day. So we would have different classes one week than the other, but because it's very consistent still, you would still be able to keep track of it very easily.
I've never thought of a 14-day week. It sounds like fun to try, but like obviously not being in school anymore, hard to imagine going back into that sort of routine. It reminds me of the calendar that most of the world use, the Gregorian calendar, which has like different lengths of the months, and you think about like this is potentially difficult to memorize for people new to it. Like, how can we make this more efficient so that it's not like the different dates have different days of the week assigned to them every year, just because it's 365 days. And month lengths like 28 for February, but 30 and 31 for other months. Like, what's going on there? How do you... And like, it's not even working well with the cycle of the moon, because the moon isn't exactly 30 or 28 days. It changes a bit as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't land on the right day. But obviously you need the whole world to change for it to actually be more efficient.
And that's the problem, right? With a lot of things, there are more efficient ways to do it, but as long as the world around us is the way it is, it's going to be very hard to convince everyone to change. There was also ideas, for example, I know we're getting very in-depth in this, but the QWERTY keyboard layout is not that efficient. Now, other layouts have been suggested, and the exact efficiency varies, but there are more efficient keyboard layouts out there. It's just try to convince everyone to learn a new keyboard layout. It's going to take a while until they get there. And as long as it's the standard, you're not going to put someone in front of like a Dovrek keyboard. So it will just probably stay the way it is until keyboards become obsolete.
Yeah, and I like the QWERTY keyboards, but like the reason that they've got it that way is because in typewriter days, you'd jam if you tried to use one hand on consecutive keys. Yeah. So like you'd want to alternate, so you have like the different combinations which are common in the English language, going back and forth like that. I'm not sure if it translates quite as well as other languages for that. Like, do they have different keyboards with different configurations? I'm sure they do.
Well, Germany uses the QWERTZ keyboard, for example, which is the exact same as the QWERTY when it comes to letters, except that Y and Z are switched. Well, I guess you would say Z.
Yeah, because it's so common to use, or more common than English, right?
Well, Y is definitely less common, I think is the big one.
Yeah, that's the change.
You have words like you that are relatively common in the language and contain a Y at the start, and I think there's a couple others. A lot of words end in Ys as well, and it just doesn't really happen as much in German. So the Z is more important than the Y, and so they switch those two around. And it gets a whole mess when you get to like the special characters on the side. Like the brackets are all on the number keys, as well as like the slash.
Do you have like a different kind of combinations when you want to have accents on the letters, or do you have keyboards that have the umlaut and so on the keyboard itself?
How long is my... Oh, that's not going to work, is it? Oh, fuck. Wait. Can I... I don't think I can unplug it from here. So, the umlauts are... So, are next to the P and the L, where you would have bracket keys.
I see.
And we have the bracket key... we have the brackets, as I said, on the numbers. So, if you want to have... Open bracket is Shift 8, close bracket is Shift 9. For the regular round brackets, I guess parentheses. Then the square brackets are Alt-Control 8 and Alt-Control 9. And the like squiggly brackets for programmers are Alt-Control 7 and Alt-Control 0. And slash is Shift 7. And so you have a lot of stuff on the number keys. The other accents, we have mainly 2 keys for, and right. So the key two to the right of the 0 has the acute accent and the grave accent on it. So one is with shift, one's without, and then if you press the accent button, then nothing shows up on your screen. And then if you put a letter that can't have an accent after it, it puts the accent as a separate character and then the next character. If you press space, it just puts the accent, and if you put a character that can have the accent, it puts the accent over the character. So, for example, if you press like acute accent E, it's going to put an E with an acute accent.
Wow, I almost wish that I knew a different language which used that, just so I could remember all these different combinations.
And then
it's interesting thing.
The circumflex is all the way on the left in the top row, and same idea, right? You press circumflex space if you want to actually write a circumflex. If you want to write like an E with a circumflex on top of it, you press circumflex and then E. It takes a bit of getting used to.
Wow. That sounds like it would.
So German doesn't have those accents, which is why they're not that important and why they don't have separate keys, right? So the umlauts have separate keys because we use them all the time. The other letters, the other accents don't. So if you want to write in a language like, say, French, then you have to kind of get used to typing them that way. I think the English International Keyboard, which is not the same as the regular QWERTY, it has also some other characters on it, has other key combinations for them, but I tried learning that and then I was like, you know what, no, it's just easier to set up a shortcut for like the 2 or 3 characters that I can normally type, like the I and the E with the 2 dots over them, for example, or the C with the cedilla, and then just use the other key combinations regularly when I need to type something. Not that I need to type a lot of French, but, here and there.
Right.
That was a long fact of the week segment, and keyboard layouts had nothing to do with Japan's work week. But let us briefly talk about what I wanted to do for the halftime show, which is, as I kind of mentioned in the intro, we talked about the reward pass, the reward track. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, reward track. Yes.
Yeah, for the for Hearthstone, like right before it came out, and we both had pretty neutral thoughts on it, where the overall community was a lot more aggressive about their opinions, but I figured it would be worth checking in of how your opinions have, well, either confirmed themselves or changed, I suppose. That's really the 2 options here, over the last 4 months.
I think that back when the rewards track came out, I didn't like have a strong opinion either way. Like I don't care too much about maximizing my golds to have the top I can possibly get, but the changes that they made really made the rewards track much better and more accessible. I don't really know. Oh, I did buy the battle pass just because it was. I thought, well, it's not too much. It'll probably get me a lot of golds anyway. And I think I've got like almost 14,000 golds from 4 months, and I think that's like double what I would have had under the normal system. So I'm pretty happy that way.
Yeah, Yeah, I have a little bit over 6,000 because I also bought the mini set for 2,000 gold.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't play as much as you do, of course. But, so yeah, oftentimes I had around like 4,000 when the expansion came out, assuming there was no like adventure for 2.8k to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that I feel like I do definitely feel like I have more gold right now. I'm not 100% certain if it's just because of the rewards track or if the fact there's more quests to do made me play a bit more, because I just wanted to finish those weekly quests as well. But something about the new system ended up with me having more gold. So I'm very happy with it. Because I also got some packs in between there. Like, not a lot of them, because most of them I took out of the track later, but some packs to fill in some of the gaps in my collection, and I have more gold than I would have had otherwise. So I'm very happy with this.
I feel like even like completing one quest after rank 50, I think, is the end of the track.
Yeah. So it was
you
level
feel
50.
like you keep on leveling up every single quest, if like multiple times a week.
It was 50 for the previous one, and the Fortune of the Barrens one will go up to 100.
Oh, brilliant! I didn't know about the new change.
So they kind of split it up. So every level is now 2 levels. So to get to level 100, it's going to take the same amount of XP as it previously used to get to 50. And you will get almost the exact amount of rewards in total. So
yes, and they also increased the number of levels in the track to, I think, was it 100? Because there used to be 50 levels on the normal one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant that you got 100 gold per level. But you mean 100.
100 levels. Yeah.
Sorry.
So they split it all out. So you get the exact same amount of gold if you get to 100, as you did when you used to get to 50, and it takes the exact same amount of XP. You get, I think, a couple of extra cards, but for the most part, it's just because people are complaining that it took them forever, and somewhere towards the end of the pass, took them forever to get from like level 46 to 47, and people just weren't happy with that. And so it leads to a better experience if you get twice as many levels, but it leads to almost the exact same amount of rewards.
Yeah, that's the main thing they're trying to have. It doesn't matter too much about the reality, because perception is reality. If people perceive that they're getting more gold, then it's good for the game because they feel like they're having a good time.
Yeah, and for that I thought it was really ingenious the way they added the golden cards to it. So there's golden Fortune of the Barrens cards that you're going to get for certain levels that are undustable and uncraftable. So effectively, if you already have the non-golden version, they're worth nothing. They're just aesthetics. But it feels like you're getting more cards.
Right. And like a lot of people don't really like the golden cards anyway, because if you can't have a full golden deck, then why have some golden and some not? But other really people have a different perspective. They want to have all the cards, all golden and normal. And I can't say that I like having golden cards all the time. But it's always fun to have more cards in your collection.
Yeah, I feel like it's fun to be able to show off, like, oh yeah, I pulled this card in gold and I'm gonna play it in gold, and goddammit. Like, I'm Hearthstone rich. I'm gonna do this. So I like that. Also, not really what I had in mind with this topic, but since we just brought it up, I feel like it is worth mentioning. What are your thoughts on the diamond cards?
I think that it's definitely an interesting idea, having a level above golden. And I like the art, like kind of animated pictures. It almost doesn't even feel like Hearthstone, just because I've seen something similar to that in other. I feel like I've seen something similar to that in other trading card games, even like in physical cards.
Oh, with the hollow cards, when if you turn them around, the perspective changes, they move. Yeah, I used to love those as a kid. I feel like the fact that the art kind of goes beyond the borders is not that Hearthstone-y, but I feel like it fits very well in Hearthstone. The only thing that's a bit disappointing for me is that they use the exact same art as the regular card. It's just a bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing which is good about it is that they've only tested that with 2 cards as expansion, right?
Yeah.
There's the 2 legendaries, which I think are both of them on the rewards track that you can get the. If you get the battle pass,
Samuro you get for the battle pass, and Brokan you get for having all the legendaries in the expansion.
Okay. Which is a pretty high cap anyway. I don't think that many people are going to reach all the legendaries. It takes quite a while to get the packs you need.
Yeah, but I've said it when I talked about it in the Hearthstone report. I like that Brukan is technically gettable for a free-to-play player, even if most aren't going to get it. Right? Because I like being able to work my way towards something like this, and I actually kind of like the free-to-play games where they're a lot grindier if you don't pay. Because whenever I get something, I feel like I actually worked for it, rather than the people who just paid for it.
Mm-hmm. And they don't get an advantage, it's just a cosmetic thing as well.
Yeah, in so like case, if you want,
when it's a cosmetic thing, then it's fine to have a small paywall towards it. And
exactly.
I'm looking forward to seeing more diamond cards in the future. I don't think they're gonna do it for all the cards in the because they would just take too much work to go through all the art. But I like that they've got special cards which can be normal, golden, or diamond, and I think a lot of people are going to have fun playing their diamond cards. I think one thing they should do is have a diamond card that generates a diamond card, like like how Zola the Gorgon would make a golden copy of a card. I think that's the next step, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Although they couldn't do any cards.
Yeah, they would have to make a regular card that makes diamond cards, because they could have a diamond version, but if it just exists as diamond, then it's going to be a bit dumb, because not everyone will be able to get it as easily. Like
Ysera that summons one of the 5 dreams. The 5 dreams could be diamond. Right?
Yeah.
Like that,
right.
That
so you're saying if there is a diamond card that generates a certain pool of cards, the generated cards will then also be diamond.
Right.
Yeah, I think the classic legendary dragons would be a good set of cards to do this to as well in general. It would be kind of weird if you had diamond whelps.
They've just made a new art for it as well.
Yeah. I think we could see this come to a lot more legendaries. I don't think we'll see it in any other cards. But maybe at some point in the future, depending on how much they're going to push this, we're going to see it on the majority, if not the entirety of all legends in the set. But that's about as far as I can see them go with this.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great sweeping change. I think they're just going to trickle in diamond cards every expansion so that they feel special.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that they use the same art, because I know, for example, in Magic the Gathering, they have collector's editions of cards that have different art and different borders, and they look really cool. And because they already made them for the physical cards, they also exist in Magic Arena, or I think it's called MTG Arena technically. But and so you can just get like a really cool looking version of a card there that is cool and different from the regular one, not just like slightly blown up art. I mean, those also exist, but that's kind of their version of gold cards are like the borderless ones with slightly bigger art for Magic Arena, and then their version of the diamond cards are just like really fancy. And I find that they do look cooler, but
yeah, I do like the diamond cards, and I think the ones they chose to be diamond are I think they're good in diamond as well. Although like I remember seeing one person on Reddit make a slightly different version of the diamond card, which had the lightning slightly more defined, which looked better, but obviously you can't have everything perfect.
Yeah, I remember, I don't remember seeing that, but I remember seeing when Zul'jin first came out. People were like, this looks weird, the art is way too zoomed in. And someone literally just made a version of the card with the art slightly more zoomed out and it looked better. And it's like, it's like such an easy fix, and we know for a fact that Hearthstone is not going to make it. Because they generally don't change the art of cards, unless it has blood or sexy things in it, in which case, China and stuff, I mean, we don't know if it's syphilis in China, but
I feel like art is one of the things which takes the longest to change as well, just because they've got to find the person who knows the art itself, and they've got to change their like that's something which is not like a coding issue, which takes I can't imagine takes more than a couple hours to fix something which
something like the hero portraits or the card generally just change out completely. Like people have said in the past, where like Gul'dan looks purple, please just make a new Gul'dan. And I mean, they eventually kind of did. They didn't replace the old one, but they made the new versions. But so that would definitely take a lot of work. But for example, the Zul'jin one, where they just have to take the existing art and just crop it differently, would not have been that hard. But yeah, I think that's enough talk about the aesthetics of Hearthstone. So I don't really have a very concrete line of questioning for the second topic, but I know that last time you were on, we did our songs of the week, and then we talked for like 20 minutes about music because we have very similar music tastes. And so I just kind of wanted to very broadly explore that. So I don't have anything prepared for this, but I just want to talk with you about music. So I guess maybe start up with what your general music taste is, maybe.
It's quite hard to have to define my music taste because on Spotify, I've got a playlist with like 800 songs, which I've just been growing for the past couple of years. And every week they have like a playlist of the week that you can listen to. I think it's only like an hour and a half long, but I know every week I add a song from that into my big playlist, and I'm looking at the different songs in my. It ranges from like Elton John and David Bowie to like Dire Straits, Foo Fighters, Noah and the Whale, Stevie Wonder. It's like I've got like a huge range of things like from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, like obviously, like I can't just say a decade and say it's that genre of music because there's different genres in that period. But
yeah, but I feel like you did kind of already give me. A lot of people that say that the music tastes are hard to explain have name a wider range of artists than what you just did. So because most of what you said
that's true.
Falls somewhere in like the pop to hard rock range.
I'd say that.
So
I mean, like, I think it's just hard for people to describe their own music tastes. It's easier for someone on the outside to say, that's this and this.
Yeah. So to me, this sounds like what I would like a very broad version of what I would consider classic rock to be. This also is some traditional pop, classic rock, some like somewhere in that range. Which I would say is the core of my music taste as well. So that kind of works. Except that for me, it's a bit more complicated because I also have some newer music in there. Most of the newer music I have is like rock or metal stuff that is relatively recent. And then there's like the odd pop song from the early 2000s in there that I just fondly remember from my childhood, which don't really fit in my music taste that well overall, but just because of that being a very formative time of my life, just kind of fits in there.
I've got a few of those sort of songs in my playlist, like things like Green Day and
oh yeah,
and, like I'm looking at Ben Folds and Jack Johnson, Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're like things which I don't think I was that big of a music listener even when I was younger, and it was just the occasional songs on the radio you'd hear. I've got a few of those on my playlist.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my music taste is actually very well defined as music I heard a lot in the early 2000s, which is either that sort of stuff like you just said, like the Green Day and Red Hot Chili Pepper stuff that just played a lot on the radio, and then just a lot of the music that my parents used to play a lot, which is stuff from like the 70s and 80s mostly, and some 60s, and so 60s to 80s mostly, because that's the stuff that they fondly remember. And so I have inherited a lot of the music taste of my parents as well.
I think that I'm a bit similar in that way, because like my parents like music as well. I think like every member of my family plays at least one musical instrument. So like I appreciate like guitar and piano, and I've so like a lot of the songs that I have in my playlist will have like are like pleasing to the ears, like musically as well as like not as much lyrically, but I suppose partially. But like sometimes I remember I would try and learn some of the songs in guitar, but I'm not that good at guitar. Because and like obviously like some of these songs are just basically strumming the same chords, and you may as well just listen to it at that point because you can't do the rest of it yourself.
Yeah, I don't have quite that musical background. I don't think any of my family really played instruments. Not that I'm aware of. Definitely not in like a big sense. I tried playing the drums for a while, but I'm not 100% sure if I wasn't very good at it or if my teacher was just shit, but it's somewhere in there. Like, I definitely didn't end up being good. I still have my drum set around. I just don't play it anymore. It's like on the attic now. But so my musical interests there mostly just come from listening to it and just being in a place where music was played a lot. Like, basically, if the TV wasn't on, the radio probably was, right? So, either a CD or actual radio broadcast, but that really shaped my musical interests. And I must say, like, there's something about the music from, like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, like, the sort of pop to rock music from that time that just feels different to me. And it's just very pleasant to me, which just modern music for the most part doesn't do.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot of the methods they use in modern music, it feels like it's more formulaic, or like it goes either between like formulaic or trying something which is just that doesn't feel like quite right. And I think that when it's more simpler and they only have a few different ways they can possibly make music, like they had to be more inventive with what they had.
Yeah. One thing that I've also heard people talk about, and I'm not sure how much of that I'm actually consciously picking up, but the compression of music these days, right? Because not only do they pitch correct a lot of stuff, which that is fine, like to some degree that has always been done, and if you don't overdo it, it's fine, but then you just take the entire track and you just like squish it together, and then you make it louder again, and it's like if you look at the waveforms of like a song that came out in the 10s, it's just gonna be like a block. And if you look at a waveform from a song that's from like the 60s, you can really see it like spike and grow, and those do end up sounding more genuine in a way, because you can actually hear the different instruments, and maybe the guitar is a bit quieter than the singing or the drums, because that's just what a guitar is. If it's like an acoustic guitar, and if you like really pump up the volume of the acoustic guitar, it just sounds wrong. And that is now the point where I am quickly going to entertain the crowd, I guess, by filling in for whomever Sparrowhawk is talking to.
Oh, it's fine. No, I was just saying background noise to be quiet.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Being able to hear individual instruments feels like a more authentic experience when you listen to music.
Yeah. And again, I don't think that's something that I not necessarily pay a lot of attention to oftentimes when I'm listening to music, but it still kind of feels like you kind of pick up on that, because if I look at my music collection, the only songs I really have that like very compressed look are mostly just metal songs, where it's more about the energy that they bring rather than the actual like acoustic fidelity of it. And so the fact that they're perceived to be more loud because of the compression just kind of helps them rather than hurts them. Whereas something like, if you try to take a Bob Dylan song and like really compress it and then pull up the volume again, it's probably not the same as if you listen to the original.
Yeah, and like Bob Dylan's example of like almost like his strength really is his lyrics. Like he won the Nobel Prize for Literature like a few years back, which is a little bit controversial because he's a musician rather than a writer. But it just goes to show like how well lyrics can like work with the music. And like he's not even that good a singer. Like that was really his strength.
I don't mind his singing. I actually do like it. But I agree that it wouldn't necessarily work for every song, right? So he really, I think he took what he had and made the best of it. So his singing might not be stellar, so he can't ever sell a song purely on his vocal performance, probably.
Right.
But if you add some nice guitars to it and the lyrics are great, then that doesn't really matter as much. In a weird way, I would compare him to Johnny Cash, where I feel like a lot of that would also not really necessarily work that well in other genres, for example, where I don't think acoustically he's like that great, but for the songs that he's singing, it works.
And I mean, like for when I listen to Johnny Cash, it's you almost like want to like close your like, oh yes, it's like he's sitting on a seat next to you and he's just playing his card like, oh yes, and this is like telling a story of his life, like the song the Man in Black. I think that's one of my favorite songs by him, where he's like talking about the reason why he wears black, and like I don't know why, but like it's all, I always have like the sort of like rush whenever I hear it. Obviously, that's in my song list.
I can't speak to that one in particular because I must admit it might have been a bit stupid for me to bring up Johnny Cash specifically because I don't know that many of his songs. But that just something that came to mind at one point where I was like, those two are actually in a lot of ways kind of similar, right? It's like it's a guy and his guitar, and they're just singing a song, and you're like really listening to what is being sung more so than how it sounds. Oftentimes, it's like just good enough acoustically that it works, but it's more about the message almost.
I mean, if I could, I would recommend. I would say like on the scale of like 1 to 10 for Johnny Cash, maybe like a 1 or a 2 because I know like a few of his songs, but I've not like extensively listened to him. I suppose that's the same with like most of the artists I've got on my playlist, in that like I've kind of gone ankle deep, but not really gone full in.
Yeah, I've noticed that with myself as well, right? Because a lot of the songs I just kind of have from nostalgia, so I'm like. Aware of it, and then I'm like, at some point I'm like, I have like 3 or 4 songs by this artist. Maybe I should actually check out the other music they've made because they seem to be pretty good. And oftentimes I think that I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good songs by this artist, and I'm like, maybe someday I should check out more of their stuff. And then like, you know what they say, someday never comes, right? I believe that was a song actually. But yeah, there's a lot of artists that I have never looked that deeply into, and I probably should have. Which always feels very weird when you then talk about like, oh, I really like this artist, and then someone brings up like, oh, what do you think about this, and that, and I'm like, I haven't heard of any of those. And it's like, right? Like, yes, I like the artist. That doesn't mean I have to listen to every song, but also actually that's something interesting. Maybe you have an insight about this, but I never understood people that are like really into one artist and like almost exclusively listen to like 1 or 2 artists' music. That always confused me.
Yeah, I feel like you can't. It's like for music, you've got to go to different artists. It's not. It's like reading a book. You wouldn't read just one person's anthology. You'd read more like other people's because they've got their heroes when they're inspired by when they're writing their books. Like for example, I'm imagining someone who's fully into Lord of the Rings. All they read is J.R.R. Tolkien, but he went to like Greek myths and on all these legends, and he brought those into his books, and all this fantasy stuff from like thousands of years before that he brought back to life with his novels.
Yeah, I think a lot of Germanic stuff as well, right? Because I think elves, more fairies as we understand them today, were very big in like the Germanic folklore. Dwarves were big in Norse mythology as well. I don't know much about where stuff like halflings, well, hobbits in his universe came from, but it's definitely interesting to look back at that. And then, of course, Tolkien in turn inspired pretty much all modern high fantasy books ever, right? Like the idea that elves and dwarves are kind of like the core races besides humans to be in a fantasy world. I mean, it's all Tolkien, right? Like, before that, those were really just some creatures from mythology.
And, like, it's the same with music. Like, if you can like some artists, but you can go back and go, well, they were inspired by Chuck Berry or other, or like Buddy Holly or the Beatles and so on. And although, like, you can listen to these artists now and think, well, this is pretty basic. Like their chords are just the same, and but like actually they're the ones who pioneered this sort of strumming or this progression of chords, this simple repeating different words in the song. Like I can't imagine like nowadays you have songs which just repeat the same words with the chorus again and again and again. But I'm pretty sure like back then, you just have they moved from like old songs like hymns or like folk songs you'd have, and they changed that to be more accessible to everyone, with their music.
Yeah, didn't the Beatles popularize having a drummer in your band? Isn't it a thing that wasn't like very common before the Beatles?
Really? Wow, I can't even imagine just, like bands without drummers nowadays. Actually, nowadays you can.
I don't fully know that, but I feel like I've heard that somewhere, that like the Beatles were what really like brought the idea of just having a drummer in your band, because the Beatles kind of are the origin of like rock music as we know it. Even though by modern standards you might not even necessarily classify them as rock as much as you would maybe just, a lot of their songs were more pop songs. But there's also something I noticed. It feels like if you have like a scale from like pop to metal, then a lot of things that were traditionally defined one way to slowly drift more towards, I'm moving the right hand, slowly drifted towards the pop side of things, right? So like a lot of like older rock songs, we maybe, if they came out today, would more classify as pop. And if you have something like Kiss, very famous. I just realized I have Gene Simmons in the background, so like yes, I happen to like some Kiss songs. The fact that I have a giant Gene Simmons in my background is probably overplaying how much I like Kiss, but I do like Kiss. And they were a very famous metal band, and most songs of theirs that I listen to, if I listen to them today, they're like, I would consider them more rock songs, modernly speaking, than like really metal. But back then they were considered metal, and I feel like a lot of that kind of shifts a little bit over time.
And it's like a window of what's considered like metal might just be like an electric guitar back then, rather than an acoustic guitar. But like it slowly goes to more and more. I mean, it's the same with everything. Like things, it goes from like a big range to being more tightly defined. Yeah, I think that's the history of music is like that too.
Yeah, I mean, I believe metal originates from blues rock or something originally, but they then slowly turned into what we now know as metal. That's also very interesting how the genres change over time, and I sometimes feel weird when I look through the classifications, like how they're officially listed for like some songs in my collection, because again, I have some modern metal stuff in there as well. And you compare that against like older metal stuff, and you compare that against like more modern rock music, and it's like you would not categorize these intuitively the way they are, but it historically makes sense.
Yeah, and I think similar to metal in that things have become more defined is rap music, because rap music in the 80s, like nowadays, would just be considered pop music, really. Like the Grandmaster Flash and so on. He's just talking a little bit fast, or like the focus is more on the words rather than the music as much.
Yeah.
Nowadays with the rap.
Yeah. I can't say too much about rap because honestly,
I don't know too much about rap either.
Not my style of music, but I just found it very interesting. Well, last time when we talked about music, but it turned out that you and I have overall, I would say, relatively similar music tastes. Which is always interesting to find out, because I find it to be a bit unusual for someone our age, is more so to have that sort of a music taste, because a lot of that music came out before we were born. So that doesn't happen as much, but then again, it is more common than you'd think as well. So, which of course leads to the whole like the thing when you go to like an old song and someone is like, hey, you was listening to this in 2020, and like, oh, music today is so shit, like not like back in the old days. Favorite example of that, of course, is the song Old Time Rock and Roll, which was literally saying that music used to be better back in the day, but people use that to talk about how shit pop music today is, which overall I would agree with, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. But the song Old Time Rock and Roll, I think, is from the 60s, right? He wasn't complaining about the music in the 2000s and 10s and whatnot. He was complaining about the music in the 60s. Right? Like,
it's the same with everything. Like, you always have rose-tinted glasses when you're looking at the past. All these songs that, like, I'm sure it's the same with you. Like, you discover them over time. You go, oh, this is a good song I've not heard before. I'll add that to my big collection. But if you were living in that time, you've just got all this rubbish that you don't appreciate that much, and then this one artist that might not be at the top of the charts, but eventually people start to realize how good they were. And I think it's the same with nowadays, is that there's going to be artists which you've probably not, or you might hear a little bit, but you won't fully go into them. But like 10 years down the line, you'll like go back. Oh, I remember this song. Oh, let's listen to the album. Wow, I can't believe I missed this album at the time. Like, and especially with the information nowadays, it's easier to see these. Where easier to find all the collection of people, whereas in the past you'd had to go to the record store and find the right records. You'd have to have like word of mouth, like, oh, listen to this, they're this band, they're really good. But nowadays you can just go, I want to see every song ever that Boston ever did in their whole career, and then you just listen to everything by Boston.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I know exactly one Boston song, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's the same with you. Same with me. Is like I only knew More Than a Feeling by Boston.
Yeah,
but now I've got like 2 or 3 songs here. Just from all the playlist of the week. Occasionally, you'd have a Boston song I've not heard before.
Yeah, I mean that's also. It's always interesting when you find songs by artists that you definitely know some songs of, and you're like, I didn't know they ever made that song. Like, this never got that much airplay, but like, it's actually really good. But speaking of the nostalgia effect, right, where good stuff now doesn't stand out as much because there's more stuff around it. Have you heard of the band Greta Van Fleet?
I have not.
Because you would not believe that they're from today, right? Like, what was it? I think people say they sound a lot like, I think it was the Doors? No, it's not the Doors. What is it? But like one of those like really old school bands, they sound a lot like, and it's actually Zeppelin. They sound a lot like Led Zeppelin. Yeah, and it's crazy, right? But they're like literally my age, and I think they started their music career in like 2015 or 2016, and I don't think they're like hugely popular, but they're like popular enough. But right now, against all of the like 10,000 pop artists that all sound exactly the same. They don't really stand. You don't really notice that they exist unless you just randomly stumble upon them. But turns out, actually, pretty solid music. So, if we're looking back at the decade in like 50 years, we might have a very different impression than we did while living through it.
Hello, future.
Oh yeah.
In 50 years, you'll go back and go, oh yeah, remember this.
Hey, y'all, people in the 50s it's the 70s. God damn it. People in the 70s watching this, I was not talking about those 60s and 70s. I was talking about the 1960s and 70s. I hope if you look at the release of this video and the probably horrid quality by 2070 standards, and the fact that it's all in like 2 dimensions and all that stupid stuff, tells you that that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to move straight to the song of the week, or do you have something more broadly to say about music?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, I think we've gone like pretty deep and into like different parts of music. So
yeah.
I
didn't know where
my
this was going to go,
of the week,
but it ended up being pretty interesting to talk.
Yeah, like you never know when you like introduce a topic, like which way it's going to go. We ended up talking about literature at some point.
Yeah. We talked about Tolkien, yeah.
My song of the week, which is like, I think I've probably heard the song before, but I didn't, or maybe I've heard something similar to it, but I didn't know the name or the artist. Is Joy by Satellite Orchestra.
Okay.
I'm searching up right now to see like when it was from. Is it a cover by someone? Maybe
I don't.
Yeah, it's
know.
The original. I think the original is No, wait. I don't know. I don't know too much about the song, obviously. But I'm trying to see whether. Wait, this is released in 2018. That can't be right. Is it really that recent?
I was. Wait. Who did you say the artist was?
Oh no, it says from the 70s. I'm really confused.
Because Joy from 2018 is by For King and Country.
For King and Country. Okay.
It says so. I just went to
the song that I had on here was "Joy" by Satellite Orchestra, which is it was in my playlist, but maybe it's a cover from something from earlier.
Yeah, because Wikipedia lists "Joy" by 7669, by Bastille, by Blackstreet, by For King and Country, by Francois Feldman, Mark Ryder, Marvin Gaye, Mick Jagger, Psychic TV,
I am
Stax,
very confused right now.
Teddy Pendergrass, and Tony Piran.
This might be like I'm really confused because when I'm searching on Spotify right now, there's only one song by Satellite Orchestra and it's "Joy" that they've got here. But when I search Satellite Orchestra on on Google, it doesn't even show up as a Wikipedia page. So I'm very confused. I might have to listen to all these Joy songs to find out which is the one that I'm talking about.
Available on YouTube Music. So most everything seems to point at Apollo 100, Joy, but I don't know if it's the same one.
It may be that one. Yes, it is the Apollo 100 song. Yep.
Yeah. I just did that exact same research, yep. Also, note to self, mute the desktop audio for this. But yeah, I mean, I substitute anyways. So yeah, the Apollo 100 song.
It's like an instrumental song. It's very pleasing to the ears, and I strongly recommend anyone to listen to it.
It is also listed on Wikipedia, but it does not have its own article. I was like reading out all the artists before, which were just the ones that had articles. But yeah. Oh, that I think this happened to me before as well. But when I think it was not actually on Spotify. I think it was on Amazon Music. When I was looking at a song, and they had an artist that only had that one song, but it was also clearly a song from a different artist. And I'm like, I don't know how that exactly worked. But yeah. So
this happens like semi-regularly on my Spotify because the songs I'm recommended sometimes are covers of songs which other artists did, like this one I've obviously just said. I don't even think Satellite Orchestra are a band. I think they're just like it's a compilation or something.
Yeah, that's what it appeared to me in my very brief research as well. But yeah.
But yeah, the song is "Joy" by Apollo 100.
Yeah, I actually had a similar thing happen with covers. As a brief aside. I had my song of the week 2 weeks ago, as a matter of fact, was "The Boys of Summer" by Don Henley, and I found it. What
is that a cover? Because that's the one I've heard of.
No, that is the original. But I found that. I found that because Alex had sent me. So Alex and I also share music sometimes because we also have very similar music taste, and he sent me a cover of that song, and I was like, I know this song. I remember liking this song. Something about this sounds off. And then I researched it, and I found out that it was a cover, and I figured out that the one that I actually knew, which was from the 80s, was the original by Don Henley. And so, that's that story, but that does not relate to my song of the week for this week, which is, I also don't think a cover, not to my knowledge at least.
This is the frantic searching whether to see if it's a cover or not. It doesn't matter too much if it's a cover as long as it's a good in either version.
I mean, I don't mind covers. I was just, it is not a cover, but it has a cover that is listed on Wikipedia. But I digress. I'm pretty sure I've used this before, but I'm going to use it anyways because I figured this was a song that you might also enjoy. I mean, you probably know it anyways, but it's Waterloo Sunset.
Yes, definitely good song, yeah.
That's my favorite The Kinks song. To be fair, I only know two, but it is my favorite.
I'm trying to think of other... well, actually, no, I'd probably be better just looking through my songs, see which Kinks song I have.
Yeah, that would probably be the way to go.
Sunny Afternoon and All Day and All the Night. Wait, Waterloo Sunset's not on my playlist. Okay, that's going to change.
See, and that is why we do these segments, to remind people to add Waterloo Sunset and Joy to their playlists. Also, speaking of the Kinks, I don't know if you didn't know the song or if you just don't like it, but Lola is also by them.
Yes. I mean, like, it's... I think it's one of the songs that keeps on coming up on my my playlist, but it's just like... because I know the background of the song, it's a bit more uncomfortable to listen to. Like, actually, oh, is that? I know it's it's about someone who thinks he's it's like Lola's I'm like. It's yeah, okay. I'm not going to go into it.
Ray Davies says, it was a real experience in a club. I was asked to dance by someone who was a fabulous looking woman. I said no thank you, and she went in a cab with her manager straight afterwards. It's based on a personal experience, but not every word.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, like
a cross-dresser, it says, which I always...
Yes, and so, yeah.
I was never 100% sure, but when I listened to the song, I was like, wait, talk like a woman and walk like a man. Sometimes I'm like, this is like somewhere on like the cross-dresser to transgender, somewhere on that spectrum. I never was 100% sure where it fell, because there can be multiple different reasons why.
Yeah, it's one of those songs where like, I feel like I know too much about the song to I appreciate it for the first time again, and like also I don't like the vocals as much as their other songs.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. I also like Water with Sunset a lot more, but I just thought like those were the two Kinks songs I think of when someone says the Kinks. Those are the songs I think of.
Oh, of course, you really got me as well. That's like. I feel like that there's like a song that's similar to that. That like might be wrong.
Actually, the interesting thing about Lola is there exists a censored and an uncensored version of the song. And do you know what they censored?
The Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Cherry Cola. Yes.
Exactly that. It's like...
that was the British version and the American version.
Oh, right, because international copyright law is not quite so international, yeah. That's just a fun fact. Every time I hear the Cherry Cola version, it just sounds wrong. Like... Because it sounds a bit different from the rhythm of the song. It mostly works, but like it stands out to me because I was used to the Coca-Cola version, and I'm hearing it, and he sings Cherry Cola. I'm like, what? That's not how that song goes.
No one knows. No one has Cherry Cola. No, that's not their favorite brand of cola, surely.
Anyways, a bit of music discussion provoked by the song of the week, as was to be expected. I low-key considered just putting the Song of the Week segment before the topic, so we had a starting point, but I figured we were going to find a way to do it. But yeah, if you don't know...
Yeah, I mean, like, there's such a huge topic of music. I'm surprised we managed to cover so much of it anyway.
Yeah, but I kind of like these open-ended topics, but it always depends on whom you're talking to, which is where I knew there was a risk, because I, of course, haven't done this with you a lot. Because, for example, if Alex and I sit down, you can literally just say a single word, and we're going to find a way to make the topic, right? But if I sit down with Sergey, for example, he tends to struggle a lot with those open-ended topics, because that's not concrete enough for him, so he really wants to have something specific to talk about. So for the people that actually have watched a lot of our podcasts, I noticed that oftentimes when I'm talking with Sergey on the podcast, the topics are a lot more specific, because that just works better for him, right? So it's that interesting thing where, like, depending on whom you're talking to, because, for example, if you make the topic very specific for me, I sometimes have the trouble, like, when I get on tangents outside the topic, it feels like I'm really diverting from the topic, while if you have a very broad topic, you're always going to kind of stay within the topic, and it feels more natural to diverge then.
No, that's the thing, like, when I'm having conversations with someone, like, I'll think of something to say, and then we've moved to a different topic already, and it feels strange to bring it back to where it was.
But
so, like, I like to have the conversation take its natural sort of progression.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing about the podcast. You kind of have to find the balance between, like, a natural conversation and still kind of being somewhat relevant to the topic that you said you were going to talk about, because you also kind of don't want to mess with expectations too much. We've had it before when we intro the topic, and it turned into a completely different topic, and then I put the topic that we ended up doing in the title, but it still feels odd when you're starting to watch a video, and they intro a topic, and it is not what we end up talking about for the most for the most part of that topic.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like there's a lot of podcasts which, like, touch on one subject and then, like, they move on from there, just because, but, like I'm imagining, oh no, well, actually, there's some podcasts, like, there's no such thing as a fish and the CGP Grey and podcasts where they've got things that they've previously wanted to say, but they just have so much to say that they've progressed from there.
I didn't know CGP Grey had a podcast. That might be interesting to listen to, actually.
He does one with Brady from Numberphile.
Oh!
It's that podcast.
I want to say I've, like, tangentially heard of that before, but I don't think I have, actually. I don't know, but that is definitely something worth checking out. Right, that's the other thing we had in common. We have a very similar interest in YouTube channels, because we watch a lot of the same, like, science-y, educational type YouTubers as well.
Oh, it's called Hello Internet. That's what it's called.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna write that down.
I've not listened to a lot of them because, like, I think I've only just in the past, like, year heard of Hello Internet in action, because sometimes they take segments from the podcast and someone would animate them, which are always a little bit fun to watch.
I love that. There's so many channels that have that, where, like, if they have a huge fan base, like, people will just animate segments from their videos. Some channels even do that officially, but they have their own animators, but that is more rare. But it's always fun when you see those, and oftentimes it makes you want to go back to, like, know why the fuck they were talking about this. Like, what is the context? I need to know the context.
Yeah.
And, I think...
have you heard of the comedian John Mulaney?
No.
He's like he's an American comedian, but like he's got like he's got a fan base. It's like they'll make parts of his stand up into like small animated clips, and it just adds to the experience of listening to the stand up. It's quite fun.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Anyway,
from the song of the week topic here, well, which is not even supposed to be a full topic. It's just us like briefly mentioning some songs, and as you can see, we very naturally go into conversation, which is nice for the podcast, but we've also been going for quite a while, so I would say let's bring this to an end, which means I'm reminding you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord server, and all of that good stuff. Do you have anything you want to plug?
I do not, I don't think. I really hope people, if they watch this long into the video, that they remember to stay hydrated with whatever kind of beverage they want.
Water, coffee, pick your poison.
Either way.
Those are the only options.
And just enjoy the expansion and enjoy music, and hope things are going well.
Yeah, so as I said, like, comment, subscribe, and you know how the outro works, don't you? Sparrowhawk?
That's it.
That's it.